forgotten people. Hear our prayer. With dented pride they soldier on. Revolutions based politicians born. And often their tragic story brings a journalist glory. No wonder they view the world with scorn. From since the day they born, some call them rebels without a cause. These social victims of unjust laws, but yet they christen the heroes, renegades, desperados, forever knocking on heaven's doors. Hear me? Steel band music shatters the silence, harmony to conquer the violence. Big men run when cops approach, fighting for scraps with the cockroach. Young Turks, they're turf protecting, almost every young girl expecting. So tomorrow begs to no borrow, there'll be another voice from the ghetto. Crying, Lord, crying, yeah. Voices from the ghetto, crying. Pitico, mama, pitico, papa, crying. Voices from the ghetto.
Yes, indeed, of course, a pleasant good night to all and sundry. This is, of course, the Corridor Transformation, your, of course, the Tuesday edition of the, well, first work week of the year, and therefore January. However, tonight I thought we must set the record straight, and we must ferociously, yes, like a dog, that of course is attempting to protect what he is expected to guard. I say so because I am of the firm view that Laventille East Morvan, and of course Laventille West, Port-au-Prince South, must be part and parcel when the results come in the next elections. That Laventille must be part of the 39 seats that I expect will go to the UNC and whatever configuration. You see, for me it is a personal effort, a personal action, a personal commitment, a personal adventure, a personal commitment, dedication, and of course a plan. Because you see, I am convinced that having spent all of my years born in Laventille and spent all my years there, I should say here, because I'm here tonight on George Street, and I witnessed, of course, in 1986, when everybody else forsaked the PNM, the Laventilles remained loyal, committed, and dedicated. It is only in the Laventilles, the PNM have not lost. I am not concerned about San Fernando East, because that was literally handed to Manning at the time by Robinson, having been satisfied that the NRI would have won enough, and therefore did not, of course, contest in the form or recontest in the form of a recount. So I don't ever give credit to San Fernando East for being loyal to the PNM. But it is clear that, and why I'm saying so is because the margin of victory, even though of course there are disparities, wide disparities, between Laventille East Movat and Laventille West, in terms of the victory, the margin of victory, because it was Wilfred Farrell who, of course, reached the closest, over 5,000 votes in that particular constituency, and a similar, but yet still a smaller margin by the opponents to the PNM. And in that year, of course, in Laventille West, it was Maurice Marshall, and in Laventille East, of course, Muriel Donowa McDavidson. Yes, it is important for Laventillians to understand not only have they, of course, given the country its national culture, steel band and calypso, I say so without fear of contradiction. And therefore the inventiveness of the only percussion instrument in the 20th century produced. And it matters not what the accolades are being given to the steel pan and the steel band, and of course those who have of course nurtured it, and today is one of, and is in, of course, in the cadre of instruments, or put another way, is considered an instrument. Beginning, of course, in the early days of the ping pong, clim pan and oil pan and so on, and then of course the oil drum eventually, and whether it was convex or concave, eventually it was concave, curved inwards, but at the beginning it was convex, curved outwards. And Spree Simon, of course, was the man who is credited for these continued evolution of the pan. And then, of course, Bertie Marshall, given, of course, the Trinity Cross. But I am sensitive to know that the only reason why he was given the Trinity Cross was because Copeland, an academic from the University of the West Indies, and he was also, of course, the principal of the University of the West Indies. And they found that it would have been too bad, Manning and Rowley and they, to only give, of course, Copeland, but because of Copeland, the person who was rightfully entitled to get to that honor of the Trinity Cross, and I had cause to talk with him, Bertie Marshall, before he died, yes, but living right, of course, on Observatory Street in one of the apartments. Is the only man I know, he loved pan so much that all his furniture was, of course, designed in with pan in mind and shape. The only man I know whose all his furniture, I talk about the seating accommodation, was in the form of a pan. And so that is the level of love and commitment. Of course, he died a poor man, because, I mean, we are talking about Observatory Street, and of course in one of the apartments on Observatory Street. So clearly the status in terms of his financial position is obvious. I don't need to go there. But the fact of the matter is that he was given the Trinity Cross before he died. Why am I saying all of this? I'm saying all of this to tell Laventillians in particular. I'm talking to them as well as, of course, those in eastward of Spain, and of course what I consider to be Belmonte, Beatams, Sealants, of course, Chumacac, Mova, etc. The place where geographically we are in close proximity, but sociologically we have the same socio-economic conditionalities. And while for political and constituency reasons, you may have lines of demarcation called boundaries for the purposes of elections, the fact of the matter is that these communities of which I speak the constituency of Port au Prince South, and the constituency of Laventille West, and the constituency of Laventille East Morvan have the same socio-economic and psycho-cultural realities, and of course, the intervention and the social, what I consider to be classification, is the same. We are just divided, of course, by man-made constituencies, but geographically, we occupy the same geographic space. And therefore, when Laventille remained solidly in the column of the PNM in 1986, persons like myself were saying in no uncertain terms, when in 1991, the PNM, of course, defeated the NAR. Robinson, of course, being at the helm at the time. And that was 1991. It means that the year before was the coup. That is an issue by itself. And, of course, and the involvement of the PNM, as we have seen coming down the periods and the cycles of elections to, of course, the one to come and the last one in 2020. What we have seen is a deliberate, of course, action by the PNM to emasculate, to disrespect, to disempowered or to disempower or to render nonchalance and of no effect, because, of course, what Balize House says politically, as far as these constituencies are concerned, no man must bark once, of course, you get to the leadership of the PNM, and that is where we are in terms of course, when we talk about Balize House, we are talking about the leadership, whatever it is, that sees, of course, the Laventilles and East Port of Spain as nuts already shelled. And therefore the disrespect, the neglect, the unappreciation, and of course the abandonment and not paying attention or value to the tenacity and the loyalty and the undivided commitment to the PNM. And the PNM, of course, reciprocates with either someone who might have been a resident of the respective areas sometime in the past. We call them, of course, absentee Laventillians. Yeah, we call them that. We have a name for them. Absentee Laventillians who, of course, come back, claim that they had some kind of long-time association with the area, and the PNM foist these people on the community for electoral purposes and to contest the general elections over the years. Yeah. Whether it be, of course, this fellow Hines, whether it be Donald Cox, whether it be their predecessors, including, of course, the late, he recently died there, are talking about Hippolyte, whether it be, of course, in the case of Port au Prince South, she has also died. Eulalie James, yes, all of them have turned out to be betrayers of the Laventille, the geographic Laventille, geographic as opposed to political, the political dichotomy or the or the lines of demarcation as far as constituencies are concerned. Yes. The point I am making is that none of the leaders over the time had the gall, the effrontery, and of course the temerity to represent and to ask Balize House. And when I say Balize House, remember I talk about the leadership that is settled in Balize House. Either way to get off or to argue the case that we have been neglected, even though of course the PNM owes Laventille its very survival. You know what I say? I said the PNM owes Laventille its very survival. Many of you don't understand that because they would make you believe that somehow you are beholden to them, as we see that in how they manage the affairs of the country by neglecting us. And when of course somebody says, well listen, we will vote out the PNM, at Balize House they laugh. They laugh at Balize House. And I have been around long enough to witness all of that. Marlene McDonald, people will be protesting and saying they will withhold their votes. And Marlene McDonald Hines, to a lesser extent, because he seemed to be a newcomer, a neophyte, talking about Leon's that got his throat bust because he said the wrong thing. With respect, of course, to the SRC's salary increase, he was the oldest man who said, nah, the government will not, of course, because he was talking genuinely. But Rowley and them believe that he was talking out of turn because, as you have seen, they have taken, of course, the increase. So he got licks. He got his person verbally flagellated, beaten out of the political arena and to represent. And why they could do that? Because there is talk on the ground that, of course, Alliance would have been, of course, a person that is humble, that tried his best in difficult circumstance, and generally, of course, an amiable man, as opposed, of course, to the rambunctious, the brutal, the obnoxious, the arrogant and contemptuous Fitzgerald Hines. Fitzgerald Hines, of course, has made slight of a cliche he would have had, talking about, of course, vote for Hines for a better mind. And of course, the community turned it around to me to say that vote for Hines to stay behind. Vote for Hines to stay behind. And of course, he can't think as far as the attenuating or the pomsite dread and the emaciated locks that emanates from the surface of his head, of his cranium. Yes. Yeah. Can't think that far. But arrogant to the core, contemptuous to the point of absolute disrespect. And people like Burke and myself and so on would have had, of course, our encounter with such arrogant, rambunctious, obnoxious, and clearly indolent nincompoop that foists himself. Well, I should say the Balize House foists him on us. And even when, of course, he was discarded as he was with an undermining, this rubbish of an individual was dust off. I wouldn't say that they take off any shine, but it was dust off. And the remaining ruggedness was foisted onto the people of either Laventille East Mova as he was, of course, when he started off, his political representation, mal as it is, as well as, of course, in Laventille West. So yes, it is important that Laventille get on board. And I'm going to tell you and show you, Laventillians in particular, the difference between, of course, a true representation and those who, of course, are make-believe, and those persons who would have gotten the opportunity, and then, of course, they toe the party line because they believe that you are what? You are a vote bank. You are a vote bank. Yes, people, this is serious business. And the FOPA and the endangerment, not just of the Laventille constituencies, Laventille East, Laventille West, and Port au Prince South, but the entire country, that the PNM, under a ruthless, brutal, evil, diabolical, corrupt, and of course, nepotistic, and of course, opportunistic and manipulative, a fellow called Rowley, a rapist and a pedophile. And those of you who want that to be your leader, haul all your tail. And who he has anointed in the case of Stuart Young, a brutal coward. A brutal coward. And I could prove it. And don't get me vexed tonight. I'll prove it tonight. But let's go to the line. Pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor.
Pleasant good night, Mr. Lennox.
Good night to you, my friend.
The right-thinking citizen of this beloved country,
Yes, ma'am.
Tobago. Mr. Lennox,
Hey.
all I want right now, I in pay no more attention to this Rowley trying to throw off the people from our focus in getting them out of there, right?
Yes.
What I was now speaking to a high-profile person, and I told them they want to stay there, and now this is just my view, right? They want to stay there,
problem, man.
They don't want the troubles that staying there could cause, but they want to stay, right?
Beautiful assessment.
Right. And what happened? Right now, Trinidad limping. Dr. Rowley get Trinidad good, and Trinidad limping right now. So what would make me feel so good, and the people of Trinidad and Tobago, the right thinking citizen that is when we get into office, whenever they call that election, when you are in public office, as saying after Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley, you are entitled to be questioned by any and every citizen of Trinidad and Tobago. And when you are a public servant, you are entitled to give account until death. So I would like the administration, which is my political party, to go into there and find every little thing and hold all these people who was a part of that cabinet, hold them accountable for their actions and for bringing the country where it's at right now. You see a lot of people now not paying attention to where we really at in this country, And Petrogen closed down a couple of years ago, and we getting a feedback now, we getting the repercussion of the Petrogen close down with the no forex and the country limping for forex and development with the cushion that Petrogen used to give us. And right now the country at a terrible state, and later down we will see the repercussion of where we really at, if people ain't seeing it right now, because me and you and right thinking citizens will already see it, we will already feel it. And that's why when they're talking to her, when they're seeing the action, the news reporters and them action, failed Gerald Swine and Colum Inber, these men and them refuse to answer because the agony of the feet done meet them already. So they're afraid to answer. They're just moving like they don't care because we pocket full. We can leave here and I don't have to answer all in the country and state, and we don't know we could have lost the election and all these things. But we holding them accountable because they are public servants and they have to answer till death. And that is one of the main things I want my political party, my political leader to do. Even starting in his first day in office, start to investigate, see what we could come up with, and see if we could get back some of our money from this thieving administration that we have there right now that have the country limping. And that is my view for tonight, Mr. Lennox.
Thank you very much, and of course, well noted, and makes a lot of sense.
Thank you very much.
Yes,
all
my
right.
friend. Yes, my friend. Yes, we have to be mono-focused, and that is why I have upgraded my cache of seats from 27 for the UNC and whatever configuration to, of course, 39. And that's why, of course, I thought I should talk to the people of Laventille, Silots, Betham, Chumakak, Africa, Low Place, Despelly Crescent, and of course the General Picton Road and John communities and surrounding St. Paul streets. We have a country to save. We have given the country its national culture, steel band and calypso. But we have been drastically shortchanged and ignored. And they stole from us. They took from us. The resources of the country must be equitably distributed. And because they classify us as, of course, I talk about these communities as crime hotspots, as socio-economically depraved, poor, ghetto. Yes, all of those descriptions are given. Lower than the white line, we are second class and third class citizens. All of those appellations, all of those pseudonyms, all of those type of names has been given to the area, and we have of course been relegated and almost segregated against. So that when you hear the name Laventille, Betham, Silat, etc., John, nobody wants to come there, nobody wants to hear about that. But there are good people there. Our survey that we did showed that there are a couple lawyers resident there. We have no living resident doctors there. We have no living resident. I think there's one pilot. Yeah, we did our homework, and all of that will be revealed in due course. And persons, of course, who commit themselves without money, and maybe because of their independence, are victimized by the PNM government. We saw where Gat, who took his own money, and with the assistance of the UNC government, transformed, of course, the old health center in Movant to a homework center computerized. And when they got into office in 2015, Heinz and they threw a blind eye, including Leon's, and they took away that from the community. What does that mean? And what does that do? If you have built-in and people who are prepared, of course, to develop the human capacity building ability of the community by their own volition and by the dint of hard work, and of course, more than normal energy and time to put in at the expense of family getting together and entertainment and other things that people would normally do, but instead you commit yourself into the community in that way. How the hell Rowley and the PNM could believe that people are going to countenance that indefinitely, and they are going to, of course, accept what Balize House says? Well, if it's so, then it means that the people of Laventille, by and large, are suckers perpetually for punishment. So the URP hustle and the cpep hustle cannot be a justifiable reward for that level of constant, indivisible loyalty. Cannot be. And that is why I was so irritated when, of course, Desperados was moved to Nelson Street from, of course, Dragon Ridge Road. You will understand that. It matters not the facility. It may look nice, but the location is one that does not augur well for economic advancement and for, of course, the expression of musical excellence. No. Why? Because for music to be excellent, somebody or cultural people must not only play it, but there must be another country that could appreciate it. And then you must be able to convert it now because of the demand to, of course, some kind of economic activity for the sustenance of all who are involved. Whether it be, of course, the pan players, or whether it be, of course, those who tune the pans, and whether those persons who may be importing and, of course, getting the raw materials. That's what we are talking about, our economic matrix. Yes, that's what we are talking about, our economic synergy. And therefore there are people who have that vision and who have that perspective and who will not move and will not relent, like myself, because this, by the very name of the nightly programs, East-West Corridor suggested that Laventille, East Port of Spain, and from Carenage to here, is as a consequence of that commitment. That is why it is called East-West Corridor. That is why it is called the corridor transformation. And by God, we must transform. You see, I have spent all of my adult life, save for recesses in terms of academic pursuits and so on, teaching, etc. But I've always been concerned, and my love for the area has never diminished. I boasted, of course, when we formed the two major institutions, Laventille for Laventillians, as well as Love, Laventille Outreach for Vertical Enrichment, a political party dedicated only to the Laventille. Nowhere else in the country there any political organization that says or is dedicated or has been formed for that purpose. And I want to tell you this. In spite of the fact, even though, of course, they have misrepresented it. And let's go to the lines, and then, of course, we will return, because it's important that communities like Laventille know what they have to do, and that they must now become disillusioned and understand that the PNM is toxic and no good, and that therefore they must come on board, because I am saying we must get 39 seats in Trinidad, and of course the Laventilles must be part and parcel of that glorious day moving forward. A pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor.
A pleasant good night to you, Uncle Lennox, and to all your listeners. And let us share the light So,
Yes.
Uncle Lennox,
Yes.
the supporters of the Lavender area you are speaking about,
Yeah.
do you remember the company called Trinidad Juice Company, Canners?
The what?
The Trinidad Canners, the
Yeah,
juice
yeah, yeah.
company,
Yeah, we call it
right?
we call it citrus growers, yeah.
Citrus Growers,
Yeah.
yeah,
Association,
right?
yes, yes.
That is right, just underneath the hills, on this side, the brighter side, to the ocean, and the Gulf of Paria. Then, you remember Fernandez and
It's-
Angostura Distillers,
Yeah, they are still there. They are still there.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're still on the right, within
Uh,
walking distance, and they fall under that constituency,
Yes, yes, yes.
right?
Yeah.
So, what I get at, that the representative for that area in his ministry had $7 billion to spend for the last fiscal year gone. Vimcut is just higher up the road. How much young men or young women that he hired to wash the vehicles or put a little service, provide a little service for the vehicles and them in Vimcut, or in PTSC, to have a little sanitation, little contract to uplift the people of Laventille. But yet still, you'll see just higher up the road by Maritime Plaza, contractors with big warehouses rented out as importers, bringing and renting the space. So you see where the e-commerces and the sufferation is? And these are the people that Rowley tell them that they are slaves, and Rowley is the true master over them, because that's what you're telling them. We are explaining to them and showing them. Since 600 years ago, the narrative haven't changed, because Laventille, all by Picton and the two little John Tower down the hill there, when that was to built, you know how much commerce it was for the people of that area too. So the people of that area, since in Manning time, is being neglected. And I wonder why it is they are so faithful and loyal for nothing, because a food card. When they get a food card and they go down in the grocery, by the time you reach across the highway, if you buy 2 biscuits, you eat it out. There are no grocery to bring home. So, what it is, a free apartment, a free URP, and cpep, and they collect money and plus the food card, that all is settled for? While others getting land, uplifting themselves, opening business, exporting, and all they at the capital city where the cruise ship coming in. And in the back in those days, the handicraft centers, they used to make craft, doily. You tell me the minister of national security couldn't open back cottages for the people to serve the cruise ship people, because when they buy a red, white, and black flag, it's plenty money. But they would rather take them from the port and carry them to the store where they sell it, because there's somebody else selling it. So you see, people, what I'm getting at in my conversation to the Port of Spain environs where we just call Laventille, is that how all have been shortchanged. Even Shogam, when the president of the United States was coming, they were starting to build all their houses and give all their a nice little house look. When they find that was too much for all here, it was cheaper to build a wall and block off all here. So that what I mean, nothing no more for all here. Just hide behind the wall. Take away the landfill from all the day-to-day life in recycling, and all the recycling, metals and whatever, right? To make $1. See what kind of employment some all they have. Nothing. But yet still on the other, just up the road by the Twin Towers, certain businessmen who him vote. And him say that they will dead up PNM. See what they own. Enough is enough. The leader of the party treat all the 9 years with scorn and disrespect, and come today to disrespect all even more and say vote for him. Then we'll see about it in September. When in September come, what all they doing? But I like what the Arimians are doing. And those from an Arima, start fast. This Penalty Peckers must be the leader of the party. Any other party, any change of the leadership, Miss Penalty Peckers must have it. Uncle Lennox, have a good night. I'll call it back a little later.
Yes, indeed.
So I hope the people, I hope they get the message and how much years we are trying to tell them they are human beings with equal rights.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much, of course, for that intervention. On the question of the leadership, of course, we have to look into that as well, because why is that just PNM business? But of course, it has implications for Lavatil, etc. But I want to say, I am neither here nor there, whether it's Penry Beckers or otherwise. Once you have that PNM mentality and having been associated with that party for so long, I fear that it doesn't matter what change in leadership in terms of the personalities that Lavatil will get a better deal. No, Lavatil must now find a mechanism to demand that it gets a better deal. And that is where I am going. I am saying that of course the leadership in Lavatil must be such, whether it be political leadership or whether it be social leadership or whether it be economic leadership. I'm talking about the business community, etc. Yes, there is a business community there. But let's go to the lines. Plus, good night. Welcome to the corridor.
Good night, good night. This is the Silver Fox here.
Good night, my friend.
Yes, man. Now, we like a bridge over troubled water, and we're looking to try to find a way, some way over. Right? The Tobago arm, the Tobago people who is PNM, does not like this Stuart Young to be no prime minister. They start to criticize. Some of them even call me today and asking what Rowley really doing. And let me say something. I was just listening with Faizabad there. Now, Lavantil people just don't make up of Trinidadians. They make up of all different races, Grenada, Barbados, whatever. They come from the CARICOM place, and when they come there, everything they get, they believe PNM give it to them. So they have this kind of mentality, and they keep sharing it around. PNM give them this, but they don't understand that PNM give you nothing. You work for it, but PNM, they're making them feel you give them this to hold them in bondage. That is why they don't change, right? You see, even though you try to educate them, they will fight against you because some of them is illiterate, and they're just there. They will just vote PNM. I like PNM. I vote PNM, and that is just what happened to them there, you know, right? I live among them for a little while, right? I went to Slovol, right? I went to Simbab's Hill to do welding. So I have a little idea how they operate something there, right? And it's up to somebody to try to get that out of them. And it will take a little, well, I don't know how to really penetrate their mind, because when you see a mind set on something, it is hard, right? And I hear Rowley talking about folly. Rowley, behave yourself. The Tobago people don't like you. We not like you. You're fooling yourself and criticizing this fella. We got beat you in the election coming. We will beat you east, we got beat you west. If we had north and south, we'd have beat you there too. Right? So, Tobagonians, get ready. A new battle is coming in town. It's time the PNM go underground. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, my friend. And one of the arguments that I will be making is for Laventille to pay attention to Tobago. You see, there is too much of attention being paid to ethnicity, to texture of hair and color of skin, because the area has been conditioned to believe that anybody else of a different ethnic group, particularly the other main ethnic group in power, they mustn't, first and foremost, they mustn't get in power. Because the PNM will bring out their propaganda machinery to suggest a kind of phobia to make them frightened. And of course, it invariably and regularly and always, in fact, turns out to be an exercise not just in futility for the Laventille people, but also an exercise where they commit suicide in many ways, economic, political, social, and we can go on. But let's go to the lines before, of course, we continue. A pleasant good night.
Good night to you, Lennox, and to your wider listening audience.
Yes, good night to you as well, my friend.
Now, I just listened to you talk about the desperados being moved from Laventille.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if that is the first phase in the gentrification of Laventille and the Port of Spain, that was Port of Spain East. So what am I really asking is why did the government move desperados, which is to me is like the backbone of Laventille in terms of culture, and put them in where did they really call it? To Duke Street or whatever? Where I don't recall.
Nelson Street they are now. Nelson Street.
Nelson Street. What was the purpose of that?
Well, it's a short, long story. It's an oxymoron, but I think I'll be able, of course, to express and to explain it, of course, in a short burst. If you want to stay on the line, fine. If not, of course, I can say that offline. All you do.
No, I'll stay online because I just want to say one more thing.
Quickly. Well, of course, because of the violence and so on the hill, Desperados was always, of course, enigmatic band, mysterious. So they everybody was always look to see what the hill is bringing, because no one could go up because of the physical nature of the hill. It's narrow streets, people don't want to drive up, they don't want to walk up, etc. But then the question of gang warfare and murders and shootings, etc., became so unbearable and so prolific that even, of course, the band leaders and the players were being threatened. So they had to move off the hill, and of course, it began, of course, their deterioration, if you want to call it. Even though, of course, subsequently they would have won a couple, of course, panoramas. Wise, of course, in the off the hill, let me put it that way. But they gave them accommodation temporary on Frederick Street, and then, of course, they gave them another one subsequently when there was, of course, a controversy with that premises on Tragridge Road. And then the government said, well, they will move them from there. Now that premises is now the place where the Ministry of Social Development head office is being constructed, and but in moving them, they told them that they will, of course, put them on Nelson Street, and of course there is where they are at this point, a facility that costs, I think, $40 million, I believe, thereabout, and they are there now. My argument is very simple. If it is you move them from the hill and you put them there, you must understand the socio-economic dynamics that cause them to leave the hill in the first place. And one of the issues is that because when these days they have numbers, the 6 and the 7s and the 9s, but of course the days of when despots just moved from on the hill. There was the Muslim and of course and the Rasta city grouping. Yeah, and but the point I am making is that fellas from on the hill cannot come down to Nelson Street because they too have been in war. Right. So I expressed my deep concern that eventually, of course, that will become another killing field. And during the construction, there was a drive-by shooting right at the corner of Queen and Nelson Streets, a stone's throw from the completed facility, even though they didn't move in as well. And of course, it gave credence to what I was saying. And the vehicle that was used was found on the hill. So it appears that fellas come from the hill possibly, and of course dealt with their enemies that is in and around Nelson Street, etc. Of course, there's a very what I consider to be gingerly, and I consider to be a fragile relationship that is now existing right outside where I am right now on George Street. There is of course a relationship between here and John, but of course other parts of the geographic space they have enemies in terms of gangs and so on. As I said, they have now been converted to 6 and 7 and 9 etc. And that is a troubling situation. It's very volatile, and of course it is that in fact that caused the state of emergency to be in effect as the authorities grew very afraid, very timid, and decided, of course, by way of knee-jerk to cause that. And of course, Rowley, recognizing that he has failed, decided, of course, in my view, to call it quits, but on his terms, and of course, without giving us a timeline. We will look at that tonight as well, comparing, of course, Rowley's terms and that of course, Prime Minister Trudeau of Canada, who, of course, in his resignation, recognizing that he has failed, gave a timeline, a specific timeline, specific timeline. Rowley has left us, of course, in an amorphous state of affairs, and that is why we have to talk to places like Laventille now. Go ahead.
Listening to Rowley and his rhetoric, he is dealing with Trinidad as what they would call a banana republic, where anything goes. Okay?
Yeah, I agree. You breach the law,
so now
anything goes. Yes, you're quite right.
Right on. The other thing that I would like to say, though, and I'll leave after this, I listened to the two previous callers. They were very passionate.
Yes.
But I think that they have some underlying sentiments for the PNM from what I heard them say. And I don't know what is the antidote for PNM-itis, if I could create a word, PNM-itis, that a large population, a large number of the populace in Trinidad and in Tobago are suffering from. What is the antidote for that? What does PNM need? How much more evil, how much more wicked things can PNM do to those people for them to have a wake-up call and move themselves from under the thumb or under the foot of the PNM? What is the antidote for that?
Very, very good question. Very, very good question. You see, if you look at the disease itself, which is the PNM, they have the capacity to generate what in politics is called propaganda, to reinforce that which over generations people were made, of course, to swallow and condition. And therefore it was built, it emerged, of course, or should I say it saturated into a cultural norm. And so, as one of the callers rightly said, the first generation, second generation, and third generation, Laventillians, if you want to call it that, in these communities, were, of course, imbued and were, of course, eternally grateful to the PNM being in office the longest. You see, that is a factor, a major factor, and therefore, even though, of course, their conditions are substandard, comparatively speaking, they compare with if they were still in the smaller islands, whether Grenada, St. Vincent, etc., and therefore they remain loyal. I speak specifically to first, second, third generation, because the fourth generation Lavantillians like myself, and of course those who and the others to come have developed, of course, a different view, because we cannot associate ourselves with this level of complacency and acceptance of poverty and the cycle thereof, and the second class and third class citizens that the PNM has, of course, been able, of course, to get away with over the years. And from Balize House, they then, of course, voice, it's the only place I know that they could voice a candidate and nobody complains, whether it be Lavantil East, Lavantil West, or Port-au-Spain South. Nobody complains about it. So it means, therefore, there has been at the same time slow, what I consider to be deconditioning, very slow deconditioning. But I am also at the same time optimistic that because we now have channels such as this to, of course, avail ourselves of to spread the information, because it is a leadership crisis, as it is, of course, information that could debunk what the PNM, because the PNM here doesn't mean Balize House alone. It means that those minions on the ground whose job it is to maintain the status quo, and therefore, right now, they wouldn't like what I am saying, because they are the ones that are controlling probably the cpep, or getting more than the fair share as far as the cpep, URP, and so on is concerned, without a quiver and without a care for the others. Even though right outside their doors, they are concerned about those young men and women wielding guns in the daytime, nighttime, in the faces, but they dare not call the police. They dare not tell them anything else. They will be deemed, of course, informers, and they could end up dying, including, of course, the destruction of their homes and innocent members of the family. That is how complex it is. So you understand. So I understand the challenge very well, and I am committed. But I think, as you asked the question, I think it was only right, of course, to give you some of the what I consider to be the deeper underlying socio-economic and psycho-cultural issues that, of course, that has evolved to make Lavantil so recalcitrant to anything else politically.
I want to say
but
one
the
thing.
PNM. Yes.
One thing before I go.
Go ahead.
CPEP and URP.
Pardon me?
To me, should be stopgap measures.
Yeah.
Meaning that people should not. It should not be a permanent state of affairs for certain people. Meaning that when you're on CPEP and you're on URP, you can't buy a house. I don't even know if you could get a car, because you can't go to a bank for a loan because you have no secure employment. And I don't know what it would take for people to realize that CPEP and URP are nothing more than something that puts them in a permanent underclass state. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying.
Oh, no, go ahead. No, I'm smiling because the contemplation and the ideating, and even though you may have some challenge, of course, in articulating, but you know, I am feeling very, very proud of you that you are able, of course, to see that. And of course, I will give the explanation in a while, but complete
right.
your thought. Let me put it that way.
Yeah. So that is what I'm saying.
Right.
They are, CPEP and URP have made quite a number of people a permanent underclass, and something needs to be done to address that.
Yes.
That's my that's what I have to say for
Very
the
well,
night.
very well,
So
very well.
thank you.
But I'll tell you, there is a cause and effect there. What you've spoken of is the effect. But let me tell you the cause. The cause is this: that same conditioning, propaganda, should I say, unbroken machinery, also is designed to tell the typical and potential activists and maybe politic but activists in the sense of let's say anti, or not anti really, but non-political activism I'm talking about here now. Talking about the social aspect of it. Football, people could set up football tournaments, so they could, of course, football sides, and they could have social groupings for, of course, kindergartens, for homelessness centers, for persons who, of course, will develop homes for children. They will also, of course, set up evening classes, etc. Now, that is that aspect. But the political element that represents the PNM, their job, coming directly from Balize House, is to make the beneficiaries of these projects, even though it is subsistence employment, it could only make you survive for a little time, but ironically, let me speak slow here and definite here. Ironically, what happens, it's as if it is enigmatic, it's as if it is some kind of mystery. They have been able to make the population believe that cpep, URP, and other make-work programs through the regional corporations is the beginning and end all for them. And thus they become extremely dependent on it for subsistence survival. And at one time, we did a survey to see to what extent these make-work programs, even though it is costing the state several $1 million, what really they are getting for it. And you know, the typical, and if the program is to run, let's use URP. If the program is to run its course, first and foremost, you cannot work beyond a certain number of fortnights. I think you can get 3 fortnights, and you can get it in such a way that there is a legal requirement that if you, of course, across a certain amount of days, you come semi let's say permanent. So they are very careful. It is a well orchestrated, well oiled program here, where you cannot get more than 3, whether at the level of the laborer, the foreman, and the other administrative arm coming up the road, like supervisors and people working in the administrative offices and so on. But hear what? They are able to give the impression that this three fortnights, each one may be about $700. Yeah, what I say? I'm talking about the lowest level. I'm talking about labor. $700, but they make it look so indispensable as part of their diet of survival for the year. So even though this makes up a small part of the requirements that they need financially in order to survive, because all of them, without doubt, must have another job. So they will go and make a hustle, let's say, emptying a container. They may go and maybe hustle a cpep and a URP at the same time. They may go and clean for someone. They may go and iron for someone. And they make up, of course, the year in that multifaceted way. But URP and cpep has been made, as I say, ideologically and psychologically to be a crucial part of that diet. So they will go down. They will go down to the cpep office, or go down to the cpep contractor, or go down to the URP office, or go down to the foreman, or the influencer, the person who is wielding some political let's say influence, and beg them. And in that scenario, what happens? The women and them in particular, they get exploited. They make child, they abuse them, and then of course they make their children, their girl children, vulnerable as well. All of that is happening, you know. And
there's a vicious cycle.
And that scenario could now be lifted and superimposed on the gangs, and they who of course may have the cpep contract, URP work, and other contracts that they may be able to get from the state, and they too wield that kind of influence, so that in other words, those who are least qualified to manage their affairs and to take the community forward are the ones that are wielding influence, and in the process there is this cycle of course decadence, this cycle of what I consider to be academic and intellectual depreciation, and of course doing badly in school. And the best, whether you become a police officer, fireman, nurse, etc., as soon as you get that opportunity, you get the hell out, and you leave of course these people to manage the affairs of the community. That is what we are facing, you know. But I will tell you the antidote that we have developed over time, because it's important that people understand, and that antidote will not be appreciated by those who prefer the status quo to remain. But I'll tell you this, my experience has been that while they see it as competition, they accept, because those who are involved, they know maybe for one reason or another, they may have gotten help from the church, the Baptist church, that would have been wielding some influence. They may get some help from me, for example. Only this week, I was able, of course, to help a certain individual with some should I say, some needs, because the person just got an apartment, and you know, she needed bricks and toilets, etc., and I was able to help with that. Now, these kinds of intervention, the element that want the status quo to remain, and they're living off of that, they respect that, and they respect those individuals. So there is let's say a mutual respect. And there is a symbiotic relationship in terms of what they are doing, or should I say a symbiotic? No, I don't think symbiotic is the right word.
No, I don't think symbiotic at all.
No, because one is destructive and the other one is progressive. So I want to say that there is a dichotomy, but of course there is the understanding at the same time of what each other is doing, and no one enters or infringes on each other's domain. That's the point. That is the way I want to describe it. And therefore, because of that, the positive elements, if it is properly organized and sufficiently resourced, can make a difference in this community. And that is what I'm talking about when I say that PNM has, of course, shortchanged, and of course have disappointed and have created, of course, what we have today as third class and fourth class citizens.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Would you consider running in Laventille, east or west, I don't know, under the UNC banner? Would you consider that?
Only today.
Or would you accept?
I say yes. Only today I said I was approached, but I said yes, I will consider that. But I think my role will be to find the appropriate candidates, and then I will manage the campaign. Because you see, if I tie myself to a constituency, that means I have to focus there. But if I, but there's a geographic space which, of course, these three constituencies occupy, and therefore there is need for equal attention to them. And I am saying that on the outside, with my resource and other capabilities and capacity, I am able, of course, to function better. Maybe I'll take a senatorial position, but certainly in terms of the electoral part of it and the constituency aspect of it, I think I will be, let's say, selling myself short and selling the community short. If, of course, I focus on a constituency per se.
Right, I got you.
You'll be on all of them.
Yeah.
You understand?
Right. You'll be freedom one and starving the others.
Yes, that's right. That's right. If
Kamla or if the UNC could somehow create, combine these three areas that you were talking about into one, and then make you something over them. Not just one, but
that is
create a body.
My intervention in what is called is not functioning as I would have liked, but I'll tell you about two institutions that I have been instrumental more in one than the other, because both of them are state-owned. You have, of course, the Port of Spain Development Corporation. It's the only state enterprise, listen carefully, the only state enterprise that is dedicated to a community. That was created in the Manning times, and of course I was very active in terms of its development and the preliminary stages and so on. But of course I am not considered to be one of them, and therefore, of course, I will be easily, of course, either disregarded or not to be made to play an intrinsic role. But certainly in terms of its formation, and it is there. So that is one institution. The other one, of course, which is my idea, all entirely, Heinz tried to claim it because he adjusted the original name, but his mind's all entirely are talking about the Laventille Technology and Continuing Education Center. The name I was going to give it was, of course, the Laventille Inner City Training Facility, but that's all right, it doesn't matter. But that facility is supposed to take care of the training to replace, of course, what I created called the Mova Laventille Trade School. And therefore, inside of that, a number of things could happen. Every single graduate, for example, and those persons who are not doing well in school, all of that, that facility is supposed to take care of. And then, of course, you have attached to it a credit union, where every single graduate is a member of that credit union. So you grow the financial prowess, if you want to call it that. And then when they get out there and they are working, they can now, of course, seek, of course, capital to start, a business, or they may want, of course, other personal items that the credit union can give. But what you're doing is, of course, laying the foundation for financial independence of the area, separate and apart from what the government is expected to make an input in. And that is why I am so anxious to make certain that the UNC get a solid footing inside of there politically, and to displace the PNM. It cannot be that the PNM is there and the UNC must now come and, of course, I should say, generate and, of course, devote huge resources to that area. It is politically not permissible, because I could see a lot of pushback, a lot of criticisms, because we have tried that already. The PNM must get out, must be jettisoned out of that area for the area, of course, to have a true development plan. And I will tell you this as well, because you'll hear it, that when I was part of the UNCA in the 2007 general election, I contested the Laventille East Mover seat personally. Well, I'll tell you, it was for the first time in a manifesto of any of the mass parties in this country that there was a section dedicated to Laventille alone. And I was the one that, of course, caused that to happen because of that association at that time. Of course, we lost the elections then, But if we had won the election because of COP and the nonsense, COP of course was now formed, and Dukuran and Pandey, and that's now water under the bridge. But the fact of the matter is that they had accepted us as an equal partner, and therefore the beginnings of the transformation, the paradigm shift, the metamorphosis of the area would have begun. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. But that doesn't mean you will give up, as you have
Yes.
said. Yeah.
I'll leave now because I'm sure you have other callers that
Yes,
are
yes,
concerned.
I'm sure. But I enjoyed the
saying
conversation because
Yeah,
it is
thank
crucial
you.
for the Lavantillians to understand. And the only how they could know that is when people like you, of course, express an interest and identify areas that you may not be aware of, that they too may not be aware of, and they too become, in the process, vicariously educated. So thanks very much, of course,
Yeah.
for your intervention.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Good night. Bye.
Yes. Bye-bye. Yes, people, of course. But let's go straight, of course. I think I said much of what I wanted to say. Let's just get this other call before I go further to look at Rowley and compare his resignation with that of Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, and see the big difference. Rowley just playing the ass. But go ahead, caller. Pleasant good night.
Pleasant good night. Lennox,
Hey.
good night. Good night again.
Yes.
I wanted to find out something. I know you talk about trying to get, well, not trying, but one of your ideas is actually getting these communities and them functioning.
Yes.
But looking at it, and I mean, I'm hoping that whoever decides to go and get these things working and functional, is that they don't just do the front of these east-west corridor, but rather go all the way up inside to the back of each province or each area. Because sometimes people just go to the front of a community,
Yeah.
and just deal with that,
Yes.
and forget about those in the back.
Yes.
We're
yes.
hoping that whoever it is doing something, go to the back. And at that point in time, it has a lot of, we have a lot of things we could do, I'm just saying, we're just trying to make solutions here, right?
Yes.
So we could do sports, let who's the fastest runners in there, take them and train them for the country to run. We're looking to train carpenters, whatever it is, whatever areas they could do, and take the resources from them and actually put them in good line, so that at least the youths and them that's coming up, we could get them to be doing something. I'm talking about the east-west corridors, like up in Malik,
Yes.
and in Mova,
Right up,
the
of
whole
course,
east-west
to even
corridor.
Toko.
Yeah,
Right up to Toko.
Toko.
And starting,
Right.
of course, in Kainaj. Yes.
Right. Because, I just doing a reference here. And this is something that's been bothering me too.
Yes.
Some people might agree or some people might disagree. For instance, like sports. Like we have a national team. I remember back in the days, you probably know, they used to have a thing called a scout. The scout will go in different areas from east, west, north, and use up those players to play for the team. That doesn't happen again. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It doesn't happen again. So things like that, the government, the country, because I say government because me and you can't do it, but they have the resources to do it. They have the people to do things like that, and get the youths and them in a cycle to say, well, yes, they could represent, they could get paid, they could get, and show them how they can earn money.
Yes.
With sports and different things. So we could look at that.
I think
Yeah.
your mind is in the right place. Let me repeat, your mind is in the right place. These are the kind of initiatives that must be taken. But the experience has been, right now, I can tell you that the government has some 50 programs dedicated to the young people. Whether it be YTEP, whether it be YAP, whether it be HYPE, whether it be military-led training program, MILAP, BITAP, and we can go on and on. About 50.
Right.
You see, I pose this question and this issue to Manning when I had cause to meet him with Archbishop Burke and I told him in no uncertain terms that you have these 50 programs, but listen, they are managed by different agencies or ministries, and they conflict with each other in terms of when they start and when they finish. And what has been the experience? You see, it's important, and you know, tears almost come to my eye because this is so dear to me. And I told him at the time that listen, you have all these programs that will last 6 months. I told him that it makes no sense that you have this hodgepodge, this helter-skelter, this higgledy-piggledy, all over the place program, and then you say that you have programs for these young people. Just as what Rowley is doing now with, of course, this fella called Cummins. He doesn't know what he's doing, and I told him so in one of the holiday Baptist holiday functions. I don't know if he would have remembered because it was a hectic period, but I did tell him that he's just a neophyte in other words. And I told Manning, I said, it's just two things you have to do. One, take all these programs dedicated to those troubled youths and have them under one roof. You can keep the same program, but have them under one roof, one administration now. Why? Because if one program starts this month and next one starting next 2 months, and throughout the year they have different times of starting. So what we discovered is that there's a certain type of young person that will gravitate to those programs, a fellow who is still at home, a fellow who is still, of course, going to listen to his parents, a fellow who, of course, might follow his friend, but there is that grouping that ain't going there at all, but they're holding guns and they're distressing the community. So what do you do in such circumstance? And those fellas that I'm referring to, they go program hopping. That's the term I use for Manning. They go what? Program hopping. In other words, when the 6 months program or 3 month program finish, they hop on to the next program that's going to start, even if, of course, they might be late. But at least because there's a stipend connected to these programs now. So they're going from program. So you really and truly, you're not building any independence, and of course, you are wasting valuable resource and capacity building so that they do not become independent as these programs are supposed to be done. And so how do you solve that? I tell Manning, I say, listen, what you do at the ending of each school year, I'm talking about July, when students from the secondary system are leaving school permanently. They have ended there. Only 5% will go on to tertiary. Maybe a next 5% may repeat. But you have, of course, something like 90% of them staying and idle all over the place. And you have these programs, and they're waiting for them to go. I said, no, all these programs must start at the same time. But how do you do it? You have clusters of schools in these communities, clusters of school, but you have a registration period before the end of the school year.
So you have them inside
before the end of the school year.
You have all the students. You have everybody inside.
That's right. So because you have them there. So what you do?
Yeah.
You put one. It could just be a desk with an official, and then of course you ask them before they leave school what they want to be, which one of these programs they would like to go into, and then you give them, of course, the breathing space because it's the August holiday. So of course you. But when they come into the next September, they know which program they're going into one time. There is no room for idle. That's the point.
Yes. But you close up the gap.
But the way how they're doing it is that a person now come out of school, they have to go and look for a program. The program is
that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen.
Satan will do what? Find work for idle hands. And then they expose, of course, to the negative elements. That is how tight these programs are supposed to be. And then I told him that, listen, no, 6 months is a short time for them to transform themselves and so on. But at least you catch them right from school And therefore, of course, if you continue with the training initiative, now of course for them to learn a skill in the main, whilst you're doing some remedial numeracy and literacy, just in case some of them fall through the crack. But more importantly, at the end of or just before this program end, because you also have an apprenticeship program. So what you do, you get the private sector involved, you get government agencies involved, and you just take up the phone and say, listen, we have students that just graduated.
Internship. You could get your internship. You could get internship.
And send them straight into real work scenarios.
And
that
society,
is what you do.
back into the society.
But you're spending the money is being spent. You're just saying that you spend this on hype, you spend this on my lap, you spend this on my tap. That is nonsense. And you cannot get to the outcome, because the outcome cannot be what we are experiencing today. But if you had it streamlined in that way, and Manning agreed, but of course that might have been an idea too late, because he was of course just about the election, not too far from election time. But the fact of the matter is that it is still there, these programs are still there, and it could, but I will not work for this group of individuals simply because they are conmen, criminals, and of course opportunists, and a person like me, they will not of course enjoy working with, because I am going to be dealing with of course the outcome that is desired, and that is
but
to say,
Lennox, not cutting across you, perfectly well done. But the only thing I think we might be able to tweak that. I mean, we just do the insolvent here. The only thing I think you could tweak that, let's say using a fifth form student.
A what?
Who put out let's say a secondary. Secondary goes to fifth form, right? On average.
Yes.
And then the school or repeat or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
So I say you want to catch the fish before it leave the pond. So what you could do in Form 4, you have these, like in the meetings, PTA meetings and all these things. In Form 4, have these different classes offering, so that when come Form 5, they will actually have ideas, or people coming into the schools and talking about this thing.
Yeah,
so give them some ideas what they want.
Yeah, that is a curriculum issue that you have to deal with the Ministry of Education. I was given a solution to the available plethora of initiatives designed, of course, to prevent what is happening in Trinidad and Tobago today. The chaos and the decadence and the destruction that is happening in Trinidad today. But of course, having a good relationship with the Ministry of Education, it means therefore you could talk in Form 4, as you say, about career opportunities, because it is the penultimate before they leave, which is of course Form 5 after they leave, after they do their exams. And they therefore in preparation,
Right. So as you saying, the ones that doesn't make it or fall in through the crack, at least they will remember and see and know and who to go to, and different areas and who knows.
They begin to think, because they're leaving school. They have to of course to think about a career. They have to decide what they want to do, etc. And they may not get the guidance in their respective community, far less for among the family and so on. And therefore, so I take the point, but you have of course to understand. Well, you have to take on board that the ministry is an entity by itself, and certainly I think the government would be able to influence all of that and to make that possible, manifest that.
But it is possible. It is possible. If this prime minister could do whatever he wants, and it's possible, this is something for our kids.
It's just a stroke
and
of
it's
a
simple.
pen. Stroke of a pen and getting the right people. We will be talking a number of things, and of course that is those to prevent those from of course engaging in gang, etc. That is that. But you also have that cadre of persons who came out of school last year and are wild all over the place as well. You must have a program for them as well. You see?
Right. So, so at least you could focus on that,
because that too.
Yeah. So all right. So we'll leave it for you next.
Yes, my friend.
All right, Lennox. So thank you, Lennox.
Yes. All right. Yes, people. Of course, it is wonderful, and that's why I say I love these programs in the night, because it gives one an opportunity, of course, to share. I'm sure the decision makers are listening as well. People like Donna Cox and others who have worked with me. Well, I shouldn't say work with me, but not work per se, but know where I stand. And of course, we have had initiatives together through the Ministry of National Security when just after I addressed the National Security Council under Manning, of course, and Martin Joseph, who would have been the man that was coordinating all of that. So I think the only one left alive is Donna Cox. Nydon Hippolyte has died. Marlene McDonald has died. And who again? Hazel Manning is still around. She was part of the team that was put. I was the only non-minister that Martin Joseph saw and gave, of course, the respect to determine whether or not he should go with a particular program called MLI, the Mova Lavatil Initiative, with all these other ministers present, including, of course, Hazel Manning. But let's go to the line. Professor, good night. Welcome.
Lennox.
Hey.
Pleasant good night to you.
Yes, man.
And everybody on the line. Pleasant good night.
Yes.
Well, I like the topic we're on. While I was talking to a previous caller, I was digging up in my tablet and I was looking for a video that I sent you either I think it's last year, where the Prime Minister Singapore, I think the name is Lawrence Wong, and I had that topic he was talking on there, and I have a holiday that I celebrate. But anyhow, I waited to give me about nearly 3 minutes ahead of time. I just waited to listen to something while I pick up in his speech.
Okay.
Right? So that gave me about 3 minutes. I waited to listen to this.
Go ahead.
Singaporeans aged 40 and above would have received a $4,000 Skills Future credit top-up in May. The credits are already in your accounts. Please take full advantage and make good use of them. Of course, effective skills upgrading takes commitment and time. You cannot become an expert just by going for a 1 or 2 day course. Workers will need time to take for full-time training. They need to take time off from work, and this can stretch over several months. They may not get paid, and they will need help with their daily expenses. So from next year, we will provide a new training allowance under the Skills Future Level Up. Essentially, if you take time off from work to study full-time, you will get an allowance of up to $3,000 a month. Every Singaporean aged 40 and above can benefit from this. Many of you in this room, I'm sure. And you have 24 months worth of allowance, everyone. If you do the sums, that adds up to $72,000 per person. So you can space out your training and get fresh injection of skills whenever you need it as you progress in your career. This is for those taking full-time courses. Now you may ask, what about those who choose to train part-time? They will continue to receive their salaries, of course, but it's not easy to work and go for classes after that. There will also be expenses associated with training, like fees and books. So we will extend some of the training allowance to those who attend part-time courses as well. They will get some of it. MOE is working on this and will share more details when we...
Lennox, they see how countries where they have proper leaders, how they just take care of the citizens of the country. We could adopt the same thing in Trinidad, but we have to have the will power to do so. And this our PNM government do not have the will to will people out of poverty, especially in Lavantel and Silots and Beatham areas.
Yeah.
They don't want to.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Because they want to line the pocket, come in and go in.
Yeah, you're right.
This thing could be done.
Of course it could be done. I think the discussion so far, people will see, because that's one of the intention, in my view, or the outcomes of these kinds of discussion, is that look how easy it is to solve the marauding, rambunctious, brutal killings by people with attitudes that clearly could only be associated with a sort of barbaric society.
I turn up. Slocton listening.
Yes, my friend. Thank you very much, of course, for that intervention there. And clearly it is in sync with the discussion that we have been engaged in. And of course, that is what we offer. I sent it to Kamala Prasad Bisesa. I don't have a copy of it here with me, but I ticked things so about 1,000 pages, and I still have more to give her because of the many years, over 30 years of research. You think Selwyn Ryan and they know what is happening in that place, and of course they will get the $1 million for their research, but I given them it for free. But as I said, I have never been inclined, except of course when Manning was around. Yes, as I said, I addressed the National Security Council on the matter, as Mr. Burke accompanied me, and I made the presentation on one of those a PowerPoint presentation to, of course, all of the security, the heads of the security, the police, the army. At that time, they had, of course, the FBI and I think other major agencies from Europe, and they sat around a horseshoe table, I at the open end, and of course I made my presentation, and afterwards they were wowed. In fact, they never asked a question afterward, except of course the minister, who was of course, as I said, Martin Joseph at the time. So there is capacity and there is know-how in this community to transform them, but Rowley and they, full of themselves, ain't know nothing, come from nowhere, and believe that somehow their notion, their ab hominem notion, is what is required there, because and not understanding what are the socio-economic and psycho-cultural dynamics of that place. Let's go to the line. The Professor, good night. Welcome.
Good night. Yeah, this is Wayne from San
Yes,
Fernando.
man. Professor, good night.
Yeah, I just
Well, I see like we up your alley tonight, boy.
Huh?
We up your alley tonight.
Yeah, I'm telling you, because I just listening to
Yes,
that
education and training, vocational in particular, yes, to solve this problem of crime and criminality in the country.
Remember we brought about the White Tech program?
Yes. I remember speaking with you on that, yes.
It started with Avian Cato, and then she brought me in, and then, others came in, and then after the NAR won the election, they turned it into the White Tech program.
Yes.
Yeah, so I want to congratulate that caller who just played that tape for you.
Yes, because it shows that what we are doing and what we have been doing, to the extent to which we are able to do it because of limited resources and a recalcitrant government without help. Mm-hmm. But here it is, other countries are in fact doing it, and clearly are reaping the success that we ought to be reaping all now. But go ahead.
Yeah, but I want to tell you this much too.
Go ahead.
I sent in a proposal for the UNC.
Right.
To transform. I'm not working on the last part of it here, but I sent in the first draft. Right.
Right.
To transform the economy with well, I don't want to give you all the details yet, but
yes, no problem.
So tonight the program is really up my alley.
Okay.
You understand?
Yes.
This is what we have been saying for the longest while, not this big thing like what Heinz was doing there. They
they don't know what they're doing. They just shooting in the dark. Sorry to use the term, especially at this SOE time. But they're shooting in the dark. They're fidgeting in the dark. They're feeling their way around. Whilst, of course, Rome burns.
Yeah. So it's just showing you that the thing could be done to move the country forward. But it's just these PLM people playing.
They have no vision. They have no foresight. They have no ideas. They cannot think things through. Everything crashes because they are too focused on themselves and how to make kickbacks and monies for themselves. It's clear. You just look at Barry's house and understand what is happening. So that has been the 10 years of this Rowley-led administration, and they must, of course, pay the price. So they cannot walk away and left Trinidad and Tobago in the doldrums as they have.
That's what I'm saying. Also, even with music, where you have the pan fraternity, that's a big area that we should also be working on.
Oh at the beginning, when of course I was no longer involved in the creation, or should I say the development, the implementation of programs in the technology center, they myopically said, well, listen, they should focus they were focusing on pan. I said, no, the program was designed to have a multiplicity of initiatives, simply because everybody in Laventille wouldn't want to play pan, but everybody in Laventille who is a young man coming out of school and didn't do too well will want to have a skill to his liking, and pan may not be one of them. So you have to open up and make available.
Involved in all kind of things.
Yeah, that's right. Yes. So have people have different attitude, and aptitude.
Listen to me. I have friends right now.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, they're doing things like this. I have a friend from up. I think it's Chaffley. She does things like you're taking the mango, pawpaw, stuff like that, and making little delicacies and stuff, but
you have to like it. You have to have it available so that the person could say, well, these are the cadre. And even when, because like in our case, I remember in MLIU when we basically skills, but then there were 2 or 3 of them that like cobblery, making belts and leather work and thing now. And what we did, we went and we asked one of the embassies to provide us with the machine and so on. And 3 persons alone used to be coming to school to do only that. Because you have to be able, of course, to meet them at least on the half or 3/4, so that if they like something, you encourage them, even if it may not be economically viable. But what you do, you habilitate 2 skills. That's how we used to do it, a minor and a major. So if one is not economical, you fall back on the other one. Yeah, and then of course you have an attitudinal change that says that you don't have to go there, because we have people who end up in the newspapers and so on, but we never taught people journalism or how to, of course, control a press system and all of that.
So so I like the program tonight.
Thank you.
So
yes.
Yeah.
Right up
we'll talk again.
Right up our respective alleys. All right. Thank you. Yes, people. So, but let's all of this cannot happen if you have, of course, people like this who, of course, do not have the foresight, and even though they have the opportunity, they cannot, of course, implement what is required in order to treat with the burgeoning problems of young people. And let me say this, and I'm not being alarmist. This is not to be alarmist, but this is to face the facts. That in July of last year, a minimum of 13,000 young people would have left secondary school permanently. And as I said, just about 5%, 10% would have gone on to return or repeat or gone on. The rest of them, what happened to them? And they would have met those who came out of school the year before, and the year before that, and the year before that, and the year before. You understand why the thing is so all pervasive and so ubiquitous, like it all over the country? And that's because of that scenario, that the government has no way to absorb all those young people when they could have done a simple thing like registering them before they leave school, and then of course send them into a program immediately when the new term would have come in, and give them a stipend. But let's go to the line. A pleasant good night. Welcome.
Hey,
Lennox.
Hey,
You hear me good?
loud and clear, my friend.
Right, listen to me good.
Yeah.
Was about 30 years or more.
Uh-huh.
And I used to drink QF. The police tell them, fellas, bring in your marijuana. I don't get me see them doing marijuana was illegal, right?
Uh-huh.
You know that fellas say, well, how do you expect me to make we live in this we work? How we gonna live if we sell we weed? What
Right.
happened eventually? The police let them sell the weed, they give them, they pay their tax and they sell the weed.
Right.
Right? Simple. Now today, marijuana legal, right?
Yes.
They say the PNM is a well-oiled machine and nobody could be. Look how much time to get them outside cut. Pandey beat them twice.
Of course.
NAR beat them. Camera beat them. So, life is about changes.
That's wishful thinking in reverse. Because if they think about the history, they will never talk them kind of hogwash. But they're so sold on that by the propaganda machinery of the PNM. But go ahead.
Now they're talking about bringing in the guns. Who doing that? Fellas who are going to bring in no gun. Last time Kamala said that's why she said everybody must have guns. So you are yours and I am mine. Be unequal, evil is evil.
Yes, even Stephen, yes.
You understand?
Yeah.
Look, I was watching Fox News here just now. Liberals in America was against gun. All of them want gun now. Why? Because Trump leaving everybody with a gun.
Yes.
So they ain't got none. So they want to go get. You understand?
Yeah.
Everybody must be on an even keel. Or when you get the bandit alone with gun. And we are the mercy of them. Kamala have the right approach.
Yes.
No. So much of things are available to people. It's what you want to know. In the field of sport, you had table tennis, lawn tennis, cricket, football.
Yeah.
And then basically what I was talking tonight.
Yes.
And you choose, but if you choose to go the wrong way, and you want to be a criminal, we cannot bother Lennox.
That's right.
What are you going to do?
You have to pay the price because there are those that will confront you. Since you want, of course, to distress me, I will have to distress you first, particularly if I catch you on my compound.
That's what I showed you.
Yeah.
So the question the fellow was asking him from away. Right? I know the history of this was and when they had to come up the hill too.
Okay.
All of you know that. So it's up to them young fellas what they want to do, you know. If they want to go the wrong way and the law put them away, they look for that.
Yeah, of course, particularly where opportunities are provided.
Available to them.
Yeah, because nothing is perfect, but it is better than nothing.
Yeah.
Because nothing means that you have an excuse. But with the thing that you would have been exposed to, you can grow, you can be involved and make it different and better. All of those opportunities would have presented itself as you engage. But when you are unengaged and when you are left to your own whim and fancy, because there is no provision and understanding of the problem, then of course we find ourselves in the, as I say, in the quagmire that is Trinidad and Tobago today, with particularly with our youths.
Right, so granted.
Yeah.
Only and them take away everything. Kamala had in place with youth.
Yeah, they simply didn't understand what's happening. They probably want to balance the budget, or they're naturally evil. I just can't understand why Rowley and the PNM would have engaged in that level of deprivation of the population. But then, of course, I think greed and avarice might have been the underlying factor that motivated all of that. And
so they fire all the people
and when Rowley was talking, now that he has now become pious and say that people have plenty bile and they shouldn't be that way in politics and so on. Now we realize that. I was saying to my mind, I said, listen, I remember the biblical statement. What would it gain a man to to gain the world and lose his soul. But I was saying, he realizing that now, so he looking to repent, but too late. He must be punished first.
I think he could reach up. He lost his soul already. Watch. When the fire take away all them cannot get so much of people walk away.
Yeah, boys.
I remember the Tourism Development Corporation in Barataria.
Yeah.
I see some girls cry Lennox.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm man close down. You know what it is? You have no work to go to when they take up.
Yeah, it's not easy. And especially if you put in a lot of sweat, tears, academic and intellectual power and energy, physical energy into a micro business as an entrepreneur, and because of COVID, you lost your business, and these people claim that they're going to assist you and never did, and now you have been relegated, of course, to the least or less ambitious. I mean, it is pathetic. Yeah, natural. That's why there should be no sympathy for them.
I see people crying about that way.
Yeah.
I'm used to get up in the morning, go to work for the first time. They're happy on the job.
Yeah.
This man closed down all the jobs that camera create.
Yeah.
And expose it, I can imagine how they feel at home these days.
Yeah, it's not a nice thing at all. And it appears at times I was wondering whether if they know what the role is as government, but then they would say it. They would say it, but the policies and programs are not doing it.
Lennox,
yeah.
They just wanted the people to forget about all what Kamala and them do for them. So they take away all the work from all of them.
And still tell them that is the best thing could happen to them?
Yeah, that's the height.
They take it away and say that the best thing could happen to them. What they had before enjoying. You take it away and say that's the best thing. That's what Rowley did,
Yes, but I
yeah. Yeah, that's a criminal, that's a merciless, that is a macabre, that is of course a barbaric individual without compassion and without compunction. The man will tell you like that is par for the course. The man will say, if you introduce a particular policy that people enjoyed before and you take it away, some people will be disappointed and displaced, forgetting that it's people you're dealing with. The cerebral palsy, parents, boy, that man take away that. You know what it is to have a cerebral palsy child? It's 24/7, and they could be 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. They have to get their pampers and all of that. And it's constant, otherwise they damage themselves. And Heinz say, when that was being funded through URP, and Heinz simply say that, listen, URP wasn't meant for that. Totally eliminating the humane and humanitarian aspect of it. Boy, oh boy, them have a special place in hell.
But Donald Cox said that pension wasn't made to live on.
Yes!
So what do you ask me? This is my people, boy.
Well, you could take it to the ridiculous, so what you do, take it and save it up then.
Look, why?
It is not to be lived on.
I noticed something happening wrong by me,
listen,
right?
Who the gods wish to destroy, they first send them mad. And there's none as blind as he or she. Yeah. And there's none as blind as he or she who refuses to see. And these people are totally. Yeah, right? They're totally optical, illusionary, oriented. Let me put it that way. All right, my friend.
I don't come back for me,
Yeah, no, not at all. And the PLM itself must be destroyed. But it's 2 minutes past 10 o'clock. Let me play that video.
But I think they destroyed themselves, so.
Yes.
We will talk.
Yes, we'll talk. Yes, man. Yes, indeed. People, of course, it's already 4 minutes past 10 o'clock. I didn't realize that. I love to talk these kind of topics. Sorry for those who preferred not to call in tonight because you realized that I was actively engaged, and I'm sure that you would have gleaned something from what we would have said. Don't forget, of course, tomorrow morning, the ground report, Andy, Mikey, and myself from 6 o'clock. But before that, let me show you the difference between morally solid individuals who operate in a democracy and know what has to be done in the interests of the people and not in their own interests. Rowley's so-called resignation is about him, not about the interests of Trinidad and Tobago. So he say he go resign. Matters not that he said it 3-4 times, but the fact is he say he go resign. When you resign, your resignation is supposed to be a smooth transition. So you ain't saying when the election will call. You ain't saying how. You have a situation where you have a leader of the party, PNM, and a prime minister as a different person in the parliament. You ain't saying that. What you're saying on for, Rowley? Well, I want you to listen to Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, who faced, just like Rowley, a situation where he has failed and accept that. Rowley has failed and he accepted that. But he wants, of course, to leave as if it is his option and there is no need to involve the population and how they feel. Look at this.
Particular date, but certainly earlier rather than later. The question now, I would be giving up the office of Prime Minister sometime in the near future. I did not give a particular date, but certainly earlier rather than later. The question now was the replacement as Prime Minister. We, as a caucus of the PNM in the House, we discussed at length, and we, in the end, came up with a situation where the entire PNM caucus is in support of Member of Parliament Stuart Young, Member of Parliament for Port of Spain, North St. Anne's East.
He forgets the constituency.
There are a couple of things that I'm still committed to doing before I come out of office. One of which is to attend the CARICOM meeting in Barbados. That is on the 19th of February. That would be my last CARICOM meeting. Political leader matter comes up with respect to a convention, because once the resignation is effected, a convention will take place in the PNM, and we've discussed it, and the earliest that we expect to have that convention is the end of September.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau.
Listen to Justin Trudeau faced with a similar situation, because we know that Rowley knows that he failed. He's just trying to have a dignified way of existence. But of course, he has scuttled that and all. So listen to how Trudeau did it, the Prime Minister of Canada. He intends to resign as well. Listen.
End of September.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, step up to the microphone.
Despite best efforts to work through it, Parliament has been paralyzed for months after what has been the longest session of a minority parliament in Canadian history. That's why this morning I advised the Governor-General that we need a new session of Parliament. She has granted this request, and the House will now be prorogued until March 24th. I intend to resign as party leader, as Prime Minister, after the party selects its next leader through a robust, nationwide, competitive process. Last night, I asked the President of the Liberal Party to begin that process. This country deserves a real choice in the next election, and it has become clear to me that if I'm having to fight internal battles, I cannot be the best option in that election. A new Prime Minister and leader of the Liberal Party will carry its values and ideals into that next election. I'm excited to see the process unfold in the months ahead. We were elected for the third time in 2021 to strengthen the economy post-pandemic and advance Canada's interests in a complicated world. And that is exactly the job that I and we will continue to do for Canadians.
I would be giving up the...
So he gave you specific timelines. He called, he wrote to the head of that country to say Peru Parliament, meaning that give an election date. And of course, he gave his party as well time, in this case, to find a leader, and then he will go his way. What Rowley has done, Rowley came and very convoluted, and what we are left with now after all the shavings, what we have left? We are left with a situation where in September, party convention. Up to that time, he will still be the political leader. But in February next month, he wants to hand over the prime ministerial position to Stuart Young. Whilst he is political leader of the party. But at the same time, in August, I think the 27th of August, Parliament will have to be prorogued, and because the next election is imminent thereafter. But you're having a convention after the proroguing of the Parliament in preparation for the elections. Up to now, he didn't tell us, well, what date he has organized or has designated for the election. Notice that, no election date. But listen to Trudeau, that is how it is done. And they have the belly, this banana republic orientation prime minister. I talk about Rowley, have the belly, of course, to make references to international and other countries. And if it was like the nonsense that he has done, bet your bottom dollar he would have referred to Trudeau. I think he did, but not how we know it to be, and of course proven it there now. But listen to Rowley again and his nonsense. Call the blasted election date. That's what you have to do. You're gone. You're persona non grata. You're obsolete. You are evil, you're wicked. And people will remember you for that. Particularly what you're selling, of course, not just the PNM, but it's damn good for them. Now we know for sure dustbin of history. And the UNC must now get 39 seats, all 39 in Trinidad. For the nonsense that all of them have contributed to. Because all of them are part and parcel of that shambolic state of affairs. The PNM has collapsed and has imploded.
I would be giving up the office of Prime Minister sometime. I would be giving up the office of Prime Minister sometime in the near future.
Sometime in the near future.
Particular date, but certainly earlier rather than later. The question now was the replacement as Prime Minister. We, as a caucus of the PNM in the House, we discussed at length, and we, in the end, came up with a situation where the entire PNM caucus is in support of Member of Parliament Stuart Young, Member of Parliament for Port of Spain North, St. Anne's East, St. Anne's West. There are a couple of things that I'm still committed to doing before I come out of office. One of which is to attend the CARICOM meeting in Barbados. That is on the 19th of February. that would be my last CARICOM meeting. Political leader matter comes up with respect to a convention, because once the resignation is effected, a convention will take place in the PNM, and we've discussed it, and the earliest that we expect to have that convention is the end of September.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, step up to the microphone.
Despite best efforts to work through it, Parliament has been paralyzed for months after what has been the longest session of a minority parliament in Canadian history. That's why this morning I advised the Governor-General that we need a new session of Parliament. She has granted this request, and the House will now be prorogued until March 24th. I intend to resign as party leader, as Prime Minister, after the party selects its next leader through a robust, nationwide, competitive process. Last night, I asked the President of the Liberal Party to begin that process. This country deserves a real choice in the next election, and it has become clear to me that if I'm having to fight internal battles, I cannot be the best option in that election. A new Prime Minister and leader of the Liberal Party will carry its values and ideals into that next election. I'm excited to see the process unfold in the months ahead. We were elected for the third time in 2021 to strengthen the economy post-pandemic and advance Canada's interests in a complicated world. And that is exactly the job that I and we will continue to do.
Sometime in the near future.
I was about to close off, but yes, a pleasant good night. I'll take this last call. Pleasant good night.
All right, pleasant good night again,
yes.
Lennox. One more thing before you switch off and you
yes.
give good night rest. Let me ask you something. In the carcass and them up on that side of it, I'm switching a little bit, you know,
Yeah, no
up
problem.
inside it, we don't have no ship, we don't have no boat, we don't have nothing, the water's open. We under ISOE. So isn't the at least the relevant army and whoever it is set up a post there now, rather than just go visit and come back out and set up a post? Well, so that's one of the questions I wanted to ask quick. I know you have to do that.
Yeah,
and the second one.
Go ahead, sorry.
And the second question is, when I come, like if I go into Tobago or wherever, and I go in the international airport there in Piaco, I see all them prime ministers in little pictures on top of the thing. So you telling me now I had to see Rowley and Stuart Young picture just now on top of it?
Yeah, boy. Yeah, unfortunately.
Well, I think let me tell you something. The airport, when people come in, they're supposed to be seeing nice museum things with the country, the culture, and these pictures and them should be on a digital board, just rotating or some kind of thing, you know. So because some people they say, no, who's these people? They just put, you know, I mean, they have years from when they serve, but they should be on a digital board, and they should have these displays of the pan and all these different, you know.
No, I agree.
I mean, for carnival.
I agree with you, because I mean, the intention was, of course, to show the leaders past and present, but the disgrace that Trinidad was handed by Rowley, I mean, it disgraced everybody else, and therefore, of course, I have no problem to taking down all of them.
Yeah, because if we could change the money, and then take out the bird on the red crow on the red house back then. Why not remove all the pictures?
That's right. The man has gone, but he has gone mad. I mean, these are what I consider to be extraordinary. Phantasmagoricals.
But coming back, to the airport itself.
Yeah.
You know, they should have more cultural things so that people when coming visiting at any point in time.
Yeah.
They could be seeing.
They only have it around Carnival time and Christmas time.
Yeah,
and so on.
No. They should have that right through.
A permanent display. Yeah, I agree.
Yes. All right. Good night,
yes,
Lennox.
Yeah.
All right.
As far as Icacus is concerned and police posts, I suppose they may have more regular patrols. I have no information that they have made any special arrangement with respect to Icacus, and I understand why you're saying that. It is closer to, of course, Venezuela. It is a quick sprint across the Serpent Mouth or the Gulf in order to get here. But of course, this government has rendered non-functional a lot of marine assets, all of them in fact. And when he was asked the question, well, how much is on? The last time we knew it was one, and he said it reluctantly because he understood the embarrassment. But these days he's saying that, listen, we don't want to tell you because it's a state secret. People will find out that I said a hogwash, but we know that clearly once he says that, it means therefore he cannot boast that all 12 boats that was bought by the UNC administration, Kamala Prasad Bisesa, for a 360 degrees protection of our borders, he of course scuttled, and some say that it was deliberate because they are involved, of course, in the promotion of contraband, whether it's people or of course items. And they can't vex with me because I have to talk tomorrow about Stuart Young because I know that he's a coward. He sent me, of course, a pre-action protocol letter some time ago, and after I sent him back, of course, my response to his pre-action protocol letter, we never heard from him afterwards. But I always knew that Rowley and these fellas in general are cowards, so they just use the office that they would have had to suddenly develop this arbitrary and this what I consider to be rambunctious and a very callous disposition and reckless use of state resources simply because it is at their disposal. And until we call it, of course, a glad handler. Fellow would never believe that he could have gotten there and of course used things irresponsibly. It is also attributed, of course, to a typical criminal, because if you never had it before, and of course there is a saying, it's like throwing pearls to swine. Well, Rowley and they have demonstrated that in more ways than one. So I press a good night to all of you, of course, and just in case, I don't think yes, I normally would. So I just want to say, remember, of course, tomorrow morning, the ground report, Andy, Mike, and myself, as we, of course, continue to deal with these and other issues.
Rowley, a dog. Low high the crime rate is in the country now, boy. Forest, come down. Inwood, come down. UNC, in tongue. I don't want to leave you on top the horse. I need you to come down here for me now. You're claiming PNM them is boss, but look how high the crime rate is now. PNM feel the bright. They can win election tonight. Come down from there, Rowley. Make me choke with that vibe. Champa, put you them, they not nice. Come down from there, Rowley. I just want to warn you before the mixing would concern you. They went like keto and walk voodoo for the people and them to vote you. On the IG post you look nice. 1 million followers, 1 million likes. In the grocery the food price high. Give we 2% and see we reply. That man can mama guy. You feel it too bright. Yeah, we need election tonight. Come down from there, Rowley. Take me to pay that vice. Calling in with them, they not nice. Come down from there, Rowley. Hines, where you come down. You're going on the beat up to mama guy, poor people. Good, you get wet down. Champa always in a zest. Least for development in a mess. Coming to the government credit card arrest. Remember when you buy all the wig and dress? Comments are millions, see your check. Tell the people them how you get it. PNM government them on it. Every minute.
Everyone's coming out to bring about a change. I see young and old, we crying out for this. Yeah, one top government will feel policy, a
government to the joke, a government to the fight we down, a government to the work, a government with integrity. Now look how they understand. A government in city and tea, no without the ball head man everybody. Rowley at the go, Rowley at the go. PNM must go. Rowley at the go, Rowley at the go. Tell them go. Rowley at the go, Rowley at the go. PNM must go. Rowley at the go. Hey, now everybody let's vote. Put them out. Vote. Put them out. Vote. Put them out. The Rowley time to resign. Vote. Put them out. Vote. Put them out. Vote. Put them out. When you see him waving bye-bye, everything's selling out. You're not working out again. Rowley at the go. Rowley at the go. It's only draw. Only draw. They will wipe out. We name. Rowley at the go. Yeah. We want a government to feel policy. A government to the joke. A government to the fight we down. A government to the work. A government with integrity. Now look how they understand. A government in sweetie and tea. Now without the ball head man everybody. Rowley at the go. Rowley at the go. Rowley at the go.
I would be giving up the office of Prime Minister sometime in the near future. I did not give a particular date, but certainly earlier rather than later. The question now was the replacement as Prime Minister. We, as a caucus of the PNM in the House, we discussed at length, and we, in the end, came up with a situation where the entire PNM caucus is in support of Member of Parliament Stuart Young, Member of Parliament for Port of Spain North, St. Anne's East, St. Anne's West. There are a couple of things that I'm still committed to doing before I come out of office. One of which is to attend the CARICOM meeting in Barbados. That is on the 19th of February. That would be my last CARICOM meeting. Political leader matter comes up with respect to a convention, because once the resignation is effected, a convention will take place in the PNM, and we've discussed it at the earliest that we expect to have that convention is the end of September.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, step up to the microphone.
Despite best efforts to work through it, Parliament has been paralyzed for months after what has been the longest session of a minority parliament in Canadian history. That's why this morning I advised the Governor-General that we need a new session of Parliament. She has granted this request, and the House will now be prorogued until March 24th. I intend to resign as party leader, as Prime Minister, after the party selects its next leader through a robust, nationwide, competitive process. Last night, I asked the President of the Liberal Party to begin that process. This country deserves a real choice in the next election, and it has become clear to me that if I'm having to fight internal battles, I cannot be the best option in that election. A new Prime Minister and leader of the Liberal Party will carry its values and ideals into that next election. I'm excited to see the process unfold in the months ahead. We were elected for the third time in 2021 to strengthen the economy post-pandemic and advance Canada's interests in a complicated world. And that is exactly the job that I and we will continue to do for Canadians.
I would be giving up the office of Prime Minister sometime in the